Good morning, everyone. I am here with Coach Landry. Dave is actually off today, which he's doing his, dad thing, which is awesome. So we wish him luck traveling out of town. So welcome to the show. Hope everyone's having a great morning. It's just Coach Landry and myself today. So let's get to it. This is the Down and Dirty at 30. Coach Landry, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you as always, and good to talk to our great listeners, and hope everybody's doing well.
Yes, absolutely. And we will be taking your questions today, or Coach Landry will be taking your questions today because he is the genius that gives us all the college football and professional football and any kind of football information out there. So, the Down and Dirty at 30 is brought to you by Honeybee Coffee. And I know I drink it every morning. Love it. Dave and I had a meeting there yesterday. It's just really good coffee. I mean, it's just really good coffee. I had a cappuccino. Really good. All you need is one. All right. So Aaron Judge finally hit 61, Coach Landry.
Yeah, I've been, we were talking before we went on. I've been watching it, every night as I'm doing my work, and got it on one of my monitors. And as he comes up, he's been hitting leadoff. And so he starts the game, and he gets multiple chances. And it's been kind of frustrating because he hadn't had many good pitches to hit, and he's been walked a lot, and he's really handled it. Just such a class guy. But so I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of dozing off, but I just catch it. I'm 5 minutes away from being, out, and he hits it, and it was great, obviously, and got the for folks who didn't see it, I'm sure you'll see it on the highlights. The Toronto crowd, and Toronto's still fighting for a wild card spot, so they had something to play for it, but their crowd gave them an ovation. For people, I know people will follow this stuff, so. It's some poor guy that had a chance to catch it, and he was apoplectic as it drops right into the Toronto bullpen, and they ended up giving the ball, of course, to Aaron Judge. So people always are looking at that. Now it got Baltimore coming up in New York to see if he can get 62, and he's in the Triple Crown race, which is probably as big. What a year he's had, and the Yankees watching him. Up until around the 4th of July, they were looking like the best team in baseball. And then they've really struggled, a lot of injuries, but Aaron Judge has been rock steady all year long.
I mean, he really has. And I think a lot of people are kind of excited for him to get it over with, because especially, please do it before Saturday. Please do it, because I could not stand it. Like, I don't follow baseball that much. My husband's a Brewers fan, but sitting there and having my whole Saturday just like split screen every so often, I'm just going, please just stop. Just let him hit it. I think they have a game on Friday, tomorrow night.
Yes.
So let's all hope and pray.
So you were one of those folks. You I know on Twitter went crazy because stop breaking into my football game. I heard somebody say, stop breaking into the Missouri-Auburn game. And I'm like, I'm watching that Missouri-Auburn game. I mean, you can break in it with Desperate Housewives and I'd be satisfied. I mean, that was a bad game. But no, a lot of people were frustrated by that. So, yeah, hopefully they can get it out of the way. And I know he'd be glad to.
I know he would. What do you think this means for Aaron Judge, for Yankees, for baseball in general, especially given the major hitters we've seen have all been, later found out with the steroids and the HGH and all of that stuff. So what would him breaking this record mean for the sport?
I thought it was a very interesting comment by Roger Maris's son. So he's interviewed. Of course, he's been with Aaron Judge's mom and all that the whole way. I'm sure he's probably glad because he can get back to his life. But he said, I think they should look, I'm paraphrasing, they should look at Aaron Judge as the true home run leader. Now, remember, he was there in the midst of the hugging Mark McGwire and the Sammy. But we all in retrospect see that differently. And that was his way of saying, Aaron Judge, we should look at him as the true home run king, you know, up with my dad and up with the great Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron, the great Hank Aaron, of course, because they did it legitimately. We know Aaron's done it legitimately because we have obviously different rules in terms of drug testing. And I think that's how a lot of people are going to see it. And he even made the strong note that Major League Baseball needs to do something about it, meaning asterisk or whatever they want to do. And I don't know if they're going to do that, but I thought that was a strong statement for the son of Roger Maris, who was clearly in the corner of Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa at the time, that he's kind of looking at it and says, well, this is legitimate. That really wasn't. I thought that's volumes.
Absolutely. And this segment is brought to you by Craft Treats, which clearly my dog and my mother-in-law's dog might need, as I don't know if you can hear them, but they are going at each other behind me. Craft Treats.
You know she's a true professional when she's dealing with a knucklehead like me, and she's got dogs and animals just going at it, and she's just the pro, just dealing with it, running the show like a pro.
Trying to skate on by that, but the Craft Treats has the CBD cannabinoid oils for your dog. It'll calm them down. Arthritis, no problem. Also, hit that like and subscribe. Share to your friends. Share to anybody you know that loves Tennessee or football in general. We are here every day, 8:30 to 10, Monday through Friday. So let's just move on to. So the game, the Dolphins and the Bengals play tonight, Thursday Night Football. Tua and Waddle are both considered questionable for the game. But before we go into that, let's all just give a prayer, moment of silence. You know what? Just to yourselves, what have you, for Hurricane Ian landed yesterday, made a lot of damage, more than I think they even thought that it would. I know it destroyed the beach that I got married on. It actually touched like down Fort Myers. I saw the buildings and I'm like, I know what that is, and this is, and this is. And so it's just really, really sad. And a lot of people, you know, are putting stuff out there on Twitter, but praying for those people. And also, do not go swimming in your house. That's probably not something that you should do. And I'm not a, professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything like that. But it doesn't seem like a great idea to swim in your house. So what say you, Coach Landry?
Yeah, somebody sent me something, and when you have these floods so massive, you can't figure out what. But the video was, they said a highway. I don't know if it was interstate or not. It wasn't really clear. But you can see in there what was very clear: shark swimming.
Yes.
In what was the highway. And it's like, so to your point, you don't know what the heck's in there. Hopefully, people have evacuated. If they didn't, you're right. Growing up around hurricanes in South Louisiana, it's a knot in my stomach every time one potentially could come our way or to someone else, and to see that, it's just heartbreaking, and it's very, very dangerous. The power of floods, it's just incredible. And then the other things that people don't think of, that none of us think of, it's like I'm watching on the news last night. There's this house that immediately goes in flames. What happened? Well, a transformer goes down and a live wire hits the house, and it engulfs into flame like a dried out Christmas tree, which you light a match to. And it just destroyed it within 15 minutes. And it's things like that if one thing doesn't get you, it's another. You've got a lot of tornadic activities, which guys in Tennessee know a lot about. That's always kind of born out of these hurricanes. So I just pray for everyone. And then, Florida, as you know, is such a narrow state. So when you get the West Coast gets hit, it doesn't take long to go to the East Coast and then jump into the Atlantic. And then what? And then is it going to Georgia? Is it going to the Carolinas? So there's a lot of things that could be affected, and least of all that's of importance is the football games this weekend. But yeah, just prayers to everybody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we said, or the people in Florida, whenever you have to put more things in your house, when you have to replace all of that stuff after the hurricane, the mattress place is a great place to go for your mattress needs, for all of that. They have great prices. Just, go to the mattress place on Chapman Highway. And let's actually, before we get to the Monday or the Thursday night game, let's go in with Tennessee. So Tennessee ranks first in total offense per the NCAA, per NCAA.com. They have 303 plays, 2,237 yards, averaging 7.38 yards per play with 26 touchdowns and 559.2 yards per game. That's insane to me. Like that offense is, I mean, we all watch it, we see it. That offense is crazy to me just to watch. So how long can Tennessee sustain this? Like, how long is this? Are they able to run this type of offense and put up these kind of numbers?
Well, they're going to play better competition, better defenses going forward. But I tell you, I don't think their offense has played anywhere near their best yet. I mean, I think even that, if you look at it, I didn't think they had much rhythm against Florida early because Florida kept the football. Certainly, they were really good against Akron and Ball State, as you might expect. But they were a little bit out of rhythm against Pitt. So I think their best offense is going forward. Now, the numbers may not stay quite the same because you're playing against better defenses, but I think their ability to run the football and the ability to make explosive plays in the passing game is a tough combination. I know that really good defensive coordinators struggle with an offense like this because you've got to match the tempo and you've got to handle things on the fly, meaning you just can't substitute as freely. You can adjust. And sometimes, even when you have the right call defensively, you can't get lined up quick enough, Amanda. And that's kind of the beauty and the lethal nature of this Tennessee offense is the speed in which they do it. It's how they do it, not really what they do. And they're very, very effective. Hendon Hooker's playing well. I know we'll talk about him. And then, their best receiver, well, I think Brew McCoy and their most polished receiver didn't even play last game out. So I think there's potential even for more growth for this offense.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I don't think we've even seen the best that they have. And I know Crazy Nugs and saying those stats are mind-boggling. They really are, because you couldn't imagine these stats being this way, especially not in the SEC. What, 10 years ago?
No.
This would have been crazy.
Football's changed. You're right. Football has absolutely changed. It's because, and the reason is because the rules are allowing it. I mean, the RPO game has changed it because literally the blocking downfield is an illegal play. But when it's an RPO, it's not a run, it's not a pass, it's a run-pass option. And there's a lot of leeway. And, you all hear the famous comment that Nick Saban said, well, this is not how football's supposed to be. It's, this is how we want it. And then he said, that's the way they're going to call it. I'm going to do some of that myself. And so it's, and it's one of the reasons why you're seeing some of it in the NFL, but in the NFL, they call downfield blocking a little bit more. So it favors the offense. So get you some and go out. And this is what Josh does. It's what he believes in. And that's why, they are kind of unique. And the other thing too, they really work the field horizontally so well with those wide splits. So they really attack defenses very well. And the numbers are astounding.
They really are. And speaking of get you some, Zollbeer.com. Get you some of that. Zoll Beer is downtown, located on East 5th. Great beer, craft beer. Every day of the week, go down there. They have to-go stuff. Grab it. It's the best beer in town, hands down. So let's get to, we'll go to Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker is the 6th ranked quarterback in power rankings. Now, he sits behind C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Drake May from North Carolina, which is a random.
A true freshman that is, killing it at North Carolina. Yes.
I mean, he really is. Have we seen, what is it, Trubisky came from North Carolina?
Mitch Trubisky came in, but he was a late bloomer, and some may say still trying to bloom in the NFL. But Drake he's better than the Sam Howell kid that came out of North Carolina last. So he's really, really good. They don't play much defense, but he is very good, and they've got a lot of weapons too.
Yeah, and listeners, we will get to your questions, I promise. And Crazy Nugs, yeah, I'll get to that too. But we're gonna go down this list, and I just want Coach Landry's opinion on which quarterback he would take out of this list and why you'd take them. So at number 4, we have Caleb Williams with the USC. Number 5, Grayson McCall with Coastal Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So that some of these names are kind of just crazy to me. Hendon Hooker falling in at number 6. Jalen Daniels with Kansas. Never thought I'd see a Kansas quarterback on this list, but here we are. This is the new day in sports, new day in college football. We have number 8, Dylan Gabriel out of Oklahoma. Number 9, Todd Santio?
Yes.
James Madison.
James Madison, obviously big win last week over App State.
Yeah, and somebody on College Game Day, I don't remember who it was, called it, and I was like, well, but I mean, it's true. It happened, so that's pretty crazy considering App State beat Texas A&M. It's been a cycle this year. It's been a cycle. It's been, I think, a little bit more so than it normally is. You see some upsets, but not like you've seen this year. And number 10, falling at number 10 is Tanner Morgan from Minnesota. Again, not a school I would expect to be on this list. So do you think with the QB power rankings, do you think they're necessarily in order of skill set, or do you think it's more just numbers?
It's more numbers, and it's more style and scheme of play. A lot of people will say, well, who do you like the best? And well, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about college quarterback, a pro prospect, those are different answers to different questions. I think what's important too, and this is kind of the real secret sauce of scouting and evaluating, is how does a player fit into a certain system? So Hendon Hooker's a great fit at Tennessee, but he's different than some other quarterbacks. Of the guys that are really good, that fit their system, but has a tremendous skill set to even do things on a different level, I'd probably say C.J. Stroud of Ohio State. Loaded with talent. That's a receiving core that's the best in the country. Ohio State's, improved defensively. They can get 3 good running backs. C.J. Stroud's special. I mean, he can. It's a little different offense than what Tennessee runs, but he's really good. Caleb Williams is outstanding. You mentioned Jalen Daniels from Kansas. Lance Leipold's done a great job with him, and they run a lot of RPO and a lot of option stuff with them. So, with Hendon Hooker, it's more of a passing game. It's more of a quick passing game. It's a one read type of offense. But he's very, very good at it, and I know that Tennessee probably wouldn't trade him for anybody, and probably some of those other teams certainly wouldn't trade their guys for anybody either. That's just kind of the way it is. But that's a good list, and yet we haven't even talked about the guys who may be some of the better pro prospects. A guy that Tennessee's going to face this year, and Will Levis of Kentucky, who's more of a pure drop back guy that has better pro potential. And is really doing a good job for a Kentucky team that's got a big matchup this week, by the way, against Ole Miss, of throwing the football all across the yard. So, yeah, there's a lot of good ones. But statistically, the numbers are not going to be there because they have a completely different style of offense. The numbers are good, but they're not as gaudy because it's a different style.
Yeah, I mean, that's That is very true. It is a different style of offense. Going to the Kentucky Ole Miss game, we talked Will Levis. I have kind of a thing against Will Levis, and that's just his coffee style. I'm a very big coffee
Oh,
person.
he's the guy that put the mayonnaise in the coffee. Oh, that's
Every
disgusting. Yeah, that's really
thank you.
that'll turn people's stomach early in the morning, huh? Yeah, that was pretty
When
bad. Yeah, I forgot
yes,
about that. I forgot completely about that. I was wondering
yeah.
where's she going with that? The coffee.
Ugh, that coffee thing. And the good thing though about, coffee that you don't have to put mayonnaise in is honeybee coffee.
There you
That's
go.
a good
That's what he
coffee.
needs to be on is honeybee coffee.
Yeah,
Stop
get
that
you
nonsense with the mayonnaise.
no, get some honeybee coffee, Will Levis, and call it a day. So for today's tough question, Coach Landry, I'm thinking let's go with like who would you rather what quarterback would you rather have?
Out of that group, it would be C.J. Stroud. I think he can do more things, running and throwing, and I think um, I would take him. Um, I would probably take as a college quarterback. Again, in Tennessee's system, I think Hendon Hooker's outstanding. Is next level guy, different. I'd probably put somebody like Will Levis or even Caleb Williams as guys that can do a little bit more. Caleb Williams is obviously the former Oklahoma quarterback that's gone out to USC. Has been really good, but all those guys that you mentioned are having really good years. Like Tanner Morgan, for example, is done a really good job for Minnesota. I think they're the best team in the Big Ten West. Um, but I don't think his numbers are largely due to a very weak schedule, although they blew out Michigan State. So let's give them credit for that. But yeah, I think all that group that you mentioned is a pretty good group.
Yeah, they definitely are. What do you think makes Hendon as good as he is? I know it's Heupel's offense, has a lot to do with it, but what are his attributes? What does he have that makes him work in Heupel's offense so well?
Well, I think he does. It's a one read offense predominantly, but the difficulty is the tempo and the poise and the leadership. I think that's what stands out um, to me for that he does. Uh, Making sure that things are handled at the line of scrimmage well, and he gets the ball off quickly, gets it to the right guy. Again, it's a lot of predetermined stuff, so he's not going through progressive reads. But and I think while his accuracy has been questioned at times, and fairly so, he's been pretty effective. The biggest thing though is the poise, and to this stage, and I'm going to reach for some wood, knock on it. He has not turned the football over, and that's what's pivotal. You can be a really good offense and score a bunch of points. If you turn the football over, it's diminishing returns. So it's the ability to be able to move the team quickly, get in a scoring position, um, and also not turn it over. That is critically important. And so I think that's what he does well. In short, he just runs this offense well, and you can't assume, even though it's quarterback friendly, that just anybody can do it. That is not the case. He has learned. He is a really good young man. He is very smart, and he's really picked things up very quickly in Josh's offense. So I think he's much more comfortable running it now than he was last year.
So, question on that case. Do you think is Hendon Hooker more successful in like Josh Heupel's offense? Would he be as successful in a different type of offense? Would he be more successful in a different type of offense? How do you think those two affect each other? I know he fits well, but do you think that there's a different type of offense that he would fit better, or do you think this is his ultimate fit?
I think it's just the best fit here. I think when you have to go into a different style of offense where you've got to make, progressive reads, he can learn how to do that, but that's not what they ask him to do. And it's not really what he's best at. I think a precision style passing offense where the ball has to come out, on time all the time and accurately, probably wouldn't fit him as well. Here, there's a lot of spacing horizontally that creates a lot of opening. So there's a lot of completions, even when the ball is not thrown exactly on time or within the range of what we call accurate, but still is a completion. So I think he definitely benefits from this offense, and I don't think he'd be as effective in other offenses. The other thing is, I don't think he'd be really good where you'd, emphasize more of the quarterback runs and stuff. I think he could do some of that. I just don't think he'd be as effective. I think this offense fits him the best.
There's a lot of talk about Hendon Hooker and possibly winning the Heisman. And it's not just Tennessee, fans. It's not just people who want to see that happen. I mean, there's a lot of talk everywhere about that. So how do you feel? Do you think that he could possibly win this thing? Do you think he's a legitimate candidate? Do you think he'll make it to New York?
Well, as of right now, he's definitely a candidate. There's a bigger pool of those guys. You've mentioned some of them we hadn't really talked about that are, I think, are contenders. Here's the thing, though, and I know it's a discussion all the time that we talk about. It's November that really determines it. So what really happens is, yes, he has done enough to this point because Tennessee's 4-0 and he's played well. They just came off of beating Florida. So he's the hot guy this week, and, he's in the mix. But the answer to whether he'll do it is really projecting how they're going to do the rest of the season. Are they going to go into Baton Rouge and beat LSU and he plays well? He'll be even, higher up on these so-called Heisman lists. But, if you get beat by Alabama and he doesn't play well, or gets beat by Georgia, maybe then 1 week knocks a guy out and puts somebody else in its place. So I think for all of them, not just Hendon, it's great. They're in a position, but all you need to do is just continue to play. And history tells us that it's going to be somebody that's on a really good team that wins pivotal games in November, probably wins their conference. And, oh, by the way, he also plays well. Now, is Tennessee going to do those things? I don't think Tennessee's going to win their division or their conference. Is Hendon possibly could have gaudy numbers and go 10-2 and lose to those two teams closely and still be invited? Perhaps, but it's really hard to forecast at this point because the answer to that comes later in the season in those games. So right now it's just a lot of fun to say, yeah, he's a candidate. But I think he could put him in that short list right now, which, again, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Tennessee season coming forward. Obviously, it's a bye week this week, which I think a lot of people are happy about. I know after you play a team like Florida, especially as hard-hitting, as crazy as that game is, as emotionally charged as that game is, you want some time maybe to rest, maybe to get your players back. Cedric Tillman, he was out for the game. So going forward with that, what do you think Tennessee stands to gain from this week as far as injuries are concerned, as far as, people getting people back to make them better? Or do you think that the off week is something that sometimes makes teams worse?
Well, bye weeks are what they are. Ideally you'd like them later because you have more attrition and you might want to, but sometimes you take it where you can get it. So here's where they are. Here's what you want to do in a bye week. You can get guys back injury wise, hopefully, if they're not season-long injuries, of course. But I always use the bye week to self-scout. And basically what that means is you study your team as if you were playing your team. And then what you try to do is break tendencies. So if you are formationally doing certain things in certain down and distance field position, you try to understand that's what you're doing, and that's what opposing teams are seeing. So we'll try to do something a little different. The other thing you can do is try to work certain aspects of your team, clean things up. Special teams, sloppiness. I think you can use a little bit of time to rest, but I also think this early in the season, Amanda, I used to like to go good on good. I used to try to put ones versus ones. And I used to do that when we played like an Akron or Ball State. Okay, so you're not going to play a good opponent this week. So let's put ones against ones, which don't happen very often in practice. Work a little bit of that, because that kind of substitutes maybe the lack of opponent that you're going to play this week, if it's a weak opponent, or in this case, a bye. I think there are different ways you can do to get better, because let me just say this. I think for all the platitudes, and they deserve them, you're 4-0, and that's that. But this team defensively has got a ways to go. They're sloppy on special teams. And I'm going to tell you, I think they're going to have to play better than they have to beat LSU on the road. And so now you've got to focus on getting better. What can you do to get better so that you can beat? And again, whether you win or not is relative to two things, right? I mean, it's how you play, but you can play really poorly in some aspects and still win the game. It doesn't make you better. It just has something to do with how that team played. Or you can play a really good game and lose. So what you can't judge your team by the wins and losses. You have to judge them on how they play to the standard that you set in all three facets. And if you do that, then you feel like your chances of coming out ahead in any game is obviously the best chance. You don't want to get into developing bad habits and being sloppy team, because that's going to get you. It just is. I thought last week, Arkansas and A&M, and breaking down the tape, neither one of them looked good. Neither one of them played good. Neither one of them should be happy. I mean, Arkansas is more frustrated because they lost the game, and they were dominating the game early, and they made mistake after mistake after mistake. But I don't look at it as, man, A&M's figured it out now. I still think they got holes. I still think they might have trouble this week against Mississippi State. They're going to have to play a lot better to beat them. So from Tennessee's standpoint is, look, it's great. You beat Florida. We discussed it, early in the week. They really let Florida back in a game that Florida had no business being in. They defensively, this Tennessee team is not good enough yet. I don't know if they're going to be good enough all year long to beat the teams that they need to beat. I think the LSU game is big, because I think if you win that, I don't like to look ahead, but I do think that the SEC East is soft. Vanderbilt, Missouri, and South Carolina, shame on you if you don't win all three of those games. I mean, that to me is games that Tennessee in no way, shape, or form should lose, because those teams are not good enough to beat Tennessee. Tennessee can only lose it if they play poor. But I think Kentucky and LSU can beat Tennessee. Tennessee can beat them. So that, to me, that game is maybe the first step. If you take care of business with all those other games, then that gets you in a possibility where maybe you can be a 9-3 team. You beat both them and Kentucky, you can be 10-2. I don't think it's realistic to think. Just like I don't think it's realistic for those three teams that I mentioned to beat Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee really realistically can beat Georgia or Alabama. I think those teams would have to really play poorly. But, you can't worry about that. You have to play your best game. And I think most fans would be thrilled with 10-2. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. But that's kind of how I see them. And so that's what I think needs to be done in the bye week. In addition to the other things, you can spend a little extra time on recruiting. You got to do it. Staff has no bye week. Trust me. The players have a little time off. The staff doesn't.
Right. So let's go back to today's tough question. We put that up. College football QB power rankings. Hendon Hooker sits sixth behind CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Grayson McCall. Which QB would you take to lead your team? 4 options: Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, or Hendon Hooker. So we have put that out for you guys today. Let's go. When we come back, we will take the questions. And Crazy Nug says, I wish they would put cameras in the helmet so we could see what the QB sees. Ain't that the truth?
Oh, I got a comment on that after, because we have that. It's just not used in games. I'll tell you about that when we come back.
Yes.
That's a great thought.
Yes, Coach Landry will tell you about that when we come back. We'll cover Tennessee's defense, and we will take your questions when we come back.
It's Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Rain. I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ooltewah. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Coach Landry. All right, let's get to Crazy Nug's question about those helmets. And he says he wishes they would put cameras in the helmet so we could see what the QB sees. Coach Landry, you said they have the technology. Give us a little insight on that.
Yeah, they've not put them for fan viewing on TV. That's interesting. Who knows? Maybe down the road they will. But there is that technology now that it fits right on the top of the helmet. It's a little camera. And it's done from a teaching standpoint, and not everybody uses it, but I think they should. Because what happens is when a quarterback will come over, or even when you watch film, you'll say, "What are you looking at?" And they'll say, "Well, I didn't see him." Well, as a coach, you got to know whether he's looking at it and he doesn't see it, meaning he doesn't understand it, or he's looking at the wrong place. And that little camera helps you determine where the problem is, because you can't fix it or teach it unless there's a problem. Coaching is teaching. So if you don't understand a math problem, well, what is it that you're not getting? You got to break it down so that you can teach them. So it's like, or you're looking at the wrong place. Again, you should be looking here. Or if you're looking at the right place and you're not seeing it, okay, you're looking at the right place. How did you not see them? And so that really helped you. And it's a really good teaching tool. There's some other things that are done. It's a little different than what Crazy Nuts is bringing up, but or is that a guy's name? I forgot. I've got the name here. Crazy Nugs. So there's this virtual stuff too, where you can literally see. You can put like video of a defense in, and a quarterback can like see it just in a room. Virtually, which is good to help recognition and eye skills. I tell you, one of the things when I was running the combine, we always, after about 2 years, we began to run a series of eye tests, not just the typical eye. We do run the typical eye test you take when you go to the doctor, but other things. Visual acuity, meaning they'd have like certain little flashes that you'd have to recognize by moving your hands based upon peripheral view. And it's things like that that helps. It trains your eyes. Eyes have muscles. And sometimes you don't see things. So a lot of this virtual stuff, it allows you to train your eye to be looking. It's like any muscle. So no, that's a good thought. I think fans would probably like it. And there have been, I'm trying to think, there have been some views that they've put in, but I don't know if they put one on the helmet in TV for the fan viewing. But it is done very often in practice settings, and it's very helpful from a teaching standpoint.
Yeah, and if you have problems seeing, where you won't have problems seeing is Big Orange Phillies. You can see all the TVs there, plenty of them. See the game anytime. On a Saturday, you're feeling froggy, jump to Big Orange Phillies. And excellent. I know Dave talks about the Wings all the time, but the Phillies are actually really, really good.
Wow. Phillies
So
are great.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Visit Big Orange Phillies. And before you do that, subscribe. You can share, you can tweet, you can whatever this channel. We appreciate everyone's input and everyone's chat. And so, good morning, Orange Blood. We're going to get to some of the questions. And if you have questions for Coach Landry, let's just send them in. So I'm going to go to John Hill. And to set this up, we're actually have the defense. Tennessee's defense is ranked 96th in the nation, which is disappointing, I think, for a lot of Tennessee fans. And I know maybe the style of offense has something to do with that, the way that they play. So John wants to know, what were our defensive schemes during the Florida game? Too much zone, definitely too soft.
Well, they did play a lot of zone in the game. The first thing you got to do defensively is you got to stop the run. It's the easiest way to get beat. And if you remember, I don't know if Orange Blood was listening to us pregame when we talked about the game. The key that I said for Tennessee defensively going into the Florida game is, can you defend the run? And this is going to be a challenge for Tennessee all year long. But it was a key. Can you defend the run with 7? Because if you can't, and you got to put extra numbers in the box, that's going to make you vulnerable on the back end. So you play some zone, you play it soft to prevent the big play. I think that you've got to mix things up a little bit more. But I just think that, the tempo is a factor, but it wasn't the real factor in the game against Florida. It's, to me, personnel deficiencies, the inability, and people say, well, you didn't defend the run all that bad. Well, no, it's not about numbers. It's if you got to put extra numbers to stop the run, that makes you vulnerable against the pass. I don't think they can cover very well. That statistic, keep in mind, and I think statistics can be skewed, but in this case, that's considering they played Akron, Ball State, a Pitt team that had their starting quarterback out of the game for a half, and a Florida team that really can't throw it very well. And you hear all week, man, Florida found their passing game this week. They found it against Tennessee because Tennessee's not really good in covering. So I think there's some issues here, which is why I said, LSU's trying to find themselves. They're trying to figure things. They threw the football very effectively and ran it against a much better Mississippi State defense. So you got to be prepared for that if you're Tennessee going up against LSU. So I think that this Tennessee team is going to have to win games this year with their offense, meaning they're going to have to get leads. They're going to have to force people to, they're trailing in games, so we can't run the football. We're going to have to throw it. So at least you eliminate half of what the opposing offense is going to do. And you can concentrate on just coverage. But if you have balance, which Florida did, then it causes a lot of problems for Tennessee's defense, particularly if you can run it. Because if you're running it, what does that do, folks? That gives less possessions for the Tennessee offense, which less possessions is less chances to score and more chance that you will lose your offensive rhythm, because this is a rhythm-based offense. All offenses are, but particularly this one. So I think those are the things you got to look at and be concerned about going forward. And this is why I say it. Look, it's just a good team. I think it's going to have a really good year. It's going to win, I think, a number of games. But it is flawed. I think that I would, and I did this on my SEC Football and Beyond show this week. Pump the brakes on the, I think people are setting them, Tennessee fans, maybe some, Amanda, maybe setting themselves up for look out, Georgia, look out, Alabama. I don't think you're there yet. Okay. I think, it's always possible to win a game like that. But this whole look out, we're 11-1, and can we make the playoffs? I don't think you're that type of team. I just think understand that the film shows that there are real flaws, and let's see how much better they can get relative to the teams that they're playing, because everybody's in the same boat, trying to get better. And I just think this is a really good team. I said it before. It looks like an 8-4 team with a 10-2 schedule. I think 9-3 is doable. I still think 8-4 might be in play. Hopefully for Tennessee fans, it's a 9-3, maybe even 10-2. I don't see them winning all 4 of those games. I also don't see them losing those games. And that's the good thing about their schedule is you're going to have to play pretty poorly to lose to South Carolina or Missouri. And you're going to have to play god-awful to lose to Vanderbilt. So you're in a good spot, and you don't have to play teams that, you don't have to play Ole Miss this year. You don't have to play Arkansas, which has some issues. So you've got a pretty decent break schedule-wise to have a good record. Does it indicate that this is on the way to a championship? I don't think they're, quite frankly, close with that. Hope I'm wrong, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, so Crazy Nugs says, LOL, he's talking about me. 11-1, here we come. And then the innocent culprit, 12-0, go Vols. So
got to have hope, right? Hey, have hope. And look, who's to say? Who's to say? What could happen in a given game? I told Amanda this and Dave this before. I didn't predict A&M to beat Alabama last year, and they did it. So in a one-game scenario, So you take care of your business. You beat LSU. You beat Kentucky. And you pull an upset over Georgia or Alabama. You could end up 11-1. That's a lot of ifs that a lot of good things need to happen, and perhaps it will.
Well, we saw a 2013 Auburn team where literally it felt like angels flew out of the sky to help the Tigers go to the national title game, in which they just got beat by FSU. But realistically, that Auburn team was not very good. And they just had stuff, just people, Georgia just laid an egg against them, basically. Alabama did the same thing. Like, teams that were better than they still beat. So I'm not saying it's likely, but with the way that Alabama's played, or against Texas, let's just take it against Texas, the way that they've played against Texas, and the way that Georgia just played against, and I can't even remember who it was.
Kent State.
Kent State. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't remember that, because that's where Saban went. So, yes. So the way that both of those teams performed, they clearly weren't their greatest, performances. What do you see Tennessee? Can Tennessee capitalize on a performance like that, or do you think Georgia and Alabama will just lock it up?
Well, if they catch those teams playing like they did in those games, sure, then game's on. And I do think that Tennessee's offense poses problems for Georgia and Alabama that they don't see in other games that they play, meaning Georgia and Alabama. They don't see offenses quite like Tennessee. So the offense is what is the secret sauce to Tennessee. It's what makes them really difficult to play. It's all about how much better do you get. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Okay, bye week, and how does Tennessee get tougher in the schedule? If you look at, I don't look at the Georgia game against Kent State as a trend. It's one game, it was sloppy. It's a teaching point. And if you look at Georgia and you look at Alabama, let's take them one at a time. I'd expect Georgia to get better and better. I would expect Missouri to get a slapping this week that is going to be probably more violent than it would have been had they played better against Kent State. Alabama, yeah, Alabama looked sloppy against Florida last year. They looked sloppy against A&M. By the end of the year, they were really good. Here's what I do know, based upon recent history, and in the case, a large sample size with Alabama. They are not only talented, but they're well coached, meaning they get better and better and better as the year goes along. So Alabama doesn't have the receiver play that they've had in the past. But you start to look at it, I think you're going to start to see them get better and better as the year goes along. Why? Because all the great receivers they had weren't great immediately they step on. Jamison Williams had some experience with Ohio State, and he was a quick adjustment. But all of the guys that they've had, through all the line, we could spend 2 segments going on all those great guys, but they were developed. They were talented that were developed. So how good would Ja'Cory Brooks be and Trayshawn Holden be and Jermaine Burton be by the end of the year? Maybe really good, maybe just a little bit better. Don't know, but history says Alabama gets better and better as the year goes along. Georgia, much the same way as Alabama. Very talented, very well coached. So you can't count on catching Alabama and Georgia in their worst moments if you're Tennessee or anybody else. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Probably they won't. So you're going to have to catch them by playing your best, and they're going to have to be off a little bit. And you're going to I think the best chance in games like that for Tennessee is to get an early lead, make those teams play from behind, make them press, make them get out of rhythm, make them turn the football over. Then you got a couple of extra possessions for your offense, because I think Tennessee's defense is not going to stop people consistently unless they're playing bad offenses. But maybe you can get some turnovers. And if you can do that, that's your chance. So I don't see chinks in the armor in Alabama or Georgia. I see Alabama and Georgia as not as good right now as they're going to be at the end of the year. That's what I see. But we got to let it play out, because maybe, hopefully, it's not the case, but catastrophic injuries take place. It can affect teams. I think there's a big gap between Alabama and Georgia and the rest of the SEC. And that includes Tennessee. That includes Kentucky. That includes anybody else in the West. I think there's a big gap. I heard somebody say today, I was on the show about that the SEC is really balanced. No, it's not. It's not in the East. You got 3 really bad teams in the East.
Yeah.
And a Florida team that's not really that good. And so you got Kentucky and Tennessee that are pretty good teams. And you got Georgia team that's great. In the West, there's more balance. Arkansas is not as good as they were last year, but they're not bad. A&M's not very good offensively, but they're not awful. Mississippi State, lost to LSU, but they're not a bad team. LSU's not a bad team. There's not a bad team in the West. There's 3 bad teams, in my view, in the East.
There's Auburn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Auburn is a mess right now. Yeah, though that's right.
Mess.
They're a mess. They're the worst looking team in the West right now.
Yeah, you hate to see it.
Yeah, and yet, you line up and play. Auburn lines up and plays Vanderbilt. Line up and play Missouri. We saw that, as ugly as it was last week, and even though Missouri blew, and you line up and play South Carolina. I kind of like Auburn in those 3 games. And so they're the worst team. That they're better than probably the 3 worst in the East. So I think there's a lot that needs to be factored. It doesn't mean that takes away from a Kentucky or a Tennessee. It just means that you need to put it all in perspective and kind of figure this out. In Tennessee, they've beaten Pitt. And again, here's the other thing, Amanda, is you're going to see Pitt be better at the end of the year, because that's a good team. And remember, they played without 2 of their starting defensive linemen against Tennessee, really good ones, and the quarterback only played a half a game. So, those are all parts of it. Pitt will be better, and that win over Pitt will look better for Tennessee down the road, even though it really wasn't as good a Pitt team as I think Pitt's going to be at the end of the year. Still counts. But I think it factors in when you study the tape that there are limitations still with this volunteer team.
Yes. So, the Georgia game against Kent State and Alabama against Texas could have been catastrophic, but do you know will
Yes.
not be catastrophic is a car from Viles Automotive.
Very good.
Go to Viles Automotive. Yes, I'm trying to learn from Dave. Go to Viles Automotive, grab you a car, and you will be completely pleased with that. And Crazy Nugs, LOL, LaFratta taking shots at Auburn again. I have to get them in.
The Alabama girl has to do that.
They have to get them
Never miss
in.
that shot.
Yes.
She might hurt herself if she pulls that punch.
Yeah, it's not a great, it's not a good day unless you have to take a shot at Auburn. So the innocent culprit has Tennessee almost lost the season to any cupcake teams on their schedule so far, talking about Alabama, almost losing to Texas, and Georgia almost losing to Kent State, which I don't think is almost a loss, but it was a bad look.
Yeah,
is that a way to measure it though? Is
no,
that a
not
good
really.
metric?
I mean, here's the thing. Again, they didn't. Tennessee's they've taken care of business, but no, that's a kind of very simplistic way of saying, okay, well, understand something. You're playing Texas. Texas has lost a few defensive players, so and remember they were really looking good against Alabama with Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers has not played since. I don't think that's a way to look at it. And look, I don't know that if Tennessee had played Texas that same week that Alabama did, Tennessee might have won by a more prodigious amount because I think Tennessee right now, with their receivers, I think there's some things that Tennessee does better offensively than Alabama and did. So, but that doesn't mean that makes them better going forward. It just means, Alabama could have lost that game. Alabama did lose to Texas A&M last year. Georgia could have lost as well. They didn't. Tennessee didn't come close to losing the game, really. I mean, I think that the game against Florida, they made a little closer, but never was overly threatened. Maybe at the end you had to hold your breath a little bit. Pitt was a little bit in doubt for stretches, but I felt like Tennessee was the better team, particularly with Slovis out of the game, and I didn't think Pitt could do anything. But the game was a little bit more competitive. And look, you can make the case that Texas was a little bit better at that time. I don't think you can look at – I mean, I think you look at that. That's what fans and media are going to look at, and it's fine. To me, what you have to look at and study is how do teams match up, and do you have the ability to win in multiple ways? I think Tennessee's got to win with their offense, and I think their offense has to help their defense out a lot, and I think Alabama and Georgia are far more balanced. They're more talented across the entire roster. So, I think to me, Tennessee's more vulnerable in any game, maybe not the cupcake games, but in across the wide variety of games are more vulnerable. More vulnerable doesn't mean that they're not going to win all their games or whatever. I just think they're different looking, and I don't think they're as good because I don't think their defense is good. So we'll see. Tennessee might be able to get it done just with their offense. I've compared Tennessee to what Oklahoma has looked like under Lincoln Riley. They're good offensively and good enough to win the Big 12, but against balanced teams, I think this ultimately is a line of scrimmage league still, and I don't think Tennessee matches up as a line of scrimmage physical team. So they have to avoid getting into a physical phone booth matchup. And if they can, that enhances their chances of winning some of these games.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to another comment. Dwayne, I don't know how to say your last name, so I'm not going to botch it. Every team has flaws. I'm not saying Tennessee will make the playoffs, but I don't think that Tennessee has played its best game on offense yet. I agree with that, but I also don't think that they have played the best defense out there yet. And you still have two pretty good defenses, coming in in Georgia and Alabama, especially.
Yeah, and I said it earlier. I don't think, because when you're reading all the stats offensively, I don't think Tennessee. I'm gonna be honest with you. By Tennessee standards, I don't think they've been that good. I think they've got a lot better offensive football. I don't think they were in rhythm against Florida. I don't think they had a really good rhythm against Pitt. And that's the two games that I'm looking at. I think Tennessee has got a lot better football in them offensively. A lot better football. Now, I'm hoping that they're healthy so they can do that. I think there's a lot better offense there. But Amanda just said it. You're going up against defenses that are going to be more challenging, and you're going to go up against better offenses that are going to be able to handle Tennessee's defense and keep the ball away. If Florida could do it, that would be my concern. Is Alabama can run the football. You know, a lot of people can run the football against Tennessee and then throw it. You just don't want to get in a shootout. If I'm Alabama, I'm Georgia, I'm anybody. I don't want to get into a shootout against Tennessee.
No.
I'm just going to run the football on Tennessee, and I'm going to shorten the game, and I'm going to win at the line of scrimmage. I think teams can do that fairly effectively against Tennessee. Good teams can. I don't think they've played what I would call a really good team yet. Florida and Pitt, I mean, depends on how you define it. I grade teams in scale, so you can say that Pitt and Florida are pretty good, depending on how you want to analogy. I would grade them kind of in a low-grade purple, which is solid teams. What I consider really good are what I would call red grade, and then blues are the best. I don't think they've played one of those teams yet. They're going to play two of them on their schedule. Folks, we're going to know how good Tennessee is. They're going to play Alabama. They're going to play Georgia. That's two of the three best teams in the country. That's going to determine how good they are. I think that LSU and Kentucky are winnable games and are losable games. That probably are the two games that are going to define their season. Because I don't think their season should be defined on beating Alabama or Georgia. But I think beating Kentucky and LSU, particularly LSU this year, is doable for Tennessee. But it's also losable too. I think that if LSU plays their best game, LSU's got a lot of things that could cause problems for Tennessee, just like Tennessee can control for LSU, and same thing for Kentucky.
Yeah, so Crazy Nugs asked me a question, and I will answer that when we come back.
Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes, folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Dish Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus a complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
All right, welcome back. Crazy Nugs with Tennessee is Kentucky's daddy. Well, those are shots fired, aren't they?
They've had a lot of success against them.
Yeah, and the innocent culprit, I don't think Heupel has shown his whole hand yet. What I've seen has been conservative by his standards. I agree with that as well. And then Sam Hargrove with agree, talking about what John said. Tennessee fans need to realize better talent is on the way and stay off the fire the coach BS. If you guys start that fire the coach BS, I can't deal with that. Like I can't deal with it. Heupel is a great coach. He is this is how I'm going to transition into the question that Crazy Nugs asked me. Like, share, and subscribe to YouTube. Go to offthehooksports.com. We have the latest news, all of that. Tennessee, talking Tennessee like crazy over there. When I am a fan of a rival of Tennessee's and I don't like the coach, you got a good one. Because and Heupel's a good dude. I'm not saying anything about his personality. As a fan, I don't want Heupel to be there anymore because I, like Crazy Nugs asked, am I scared of Alabama coming to, Knoxville? Yes, I am. Hands down, I'm scared of it. I don't, Knoxville's never a great, environment for opposing teams as we've seen.
Right.
But that rivalry, this is not the first year because I'm always nervous about it, but this is the first year I dread that game. Like I honestly dread that game. My stomach's going to be tied up in knots. I think that Tennessee is, again, they haven't shown everything that they've have yet. And the innocent culprit with, I don't think Heupel has shown his whole hand yet. What I've seen has been conservative by his standards. I would agree. I don't think he's shown his whole hand yet. And yes, as an opposing fan, that makes me nervous. So to answer your question, Crazy Nugs, yes, I am nervous. I do not know about Tennessee being Kentucky's daddy, though. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but yes, I am very nervous about that game. So, Coach Landry, if Georgia and Alabama, if we've seen them perform poorly this season, but it's early on in the season. And that to me gives me a moment to pause because last year Alabama didn't do well against a Florida team, but the Florida team got up. I mean, they were up for, at the beginning of the year. This year, it seems like we're seeing these teams go down early on. Like we saw Notre Dame go down. We saw Texas A&M go down. And normally we don't see that till further along in the season where injuries are piling up, things like that. What do you think the reason is that we're seeing these major teams struggle early on?
Well, I think what's happening in a couple of cases is you have teams that are more talented but are deficient in certain areas. So let's take like A&M. Went with Hayden King at quarterback, no passing game. They were limited what they can do, and you're playing an Appalachian State team that's pretty good. They really are a pretty good team. And they are senior-laden, experienced. And so I think sometimes earlier in the year, what you get, again, you never stay the same. You either get better or you get worse. So I think when you can catch a team at the right time, like in the early part of the season, I think it depends on what type of team you got coming back. If you're a team that's got some question marks, a more talented team, a big-time program that's got some real holes in a certain spots, you have a hard time maybe figuring out earlier, then you figure it out. But if you end up playing a quote unquote a lesser team that's maybe not overall as talented, but has really good chemistry, has really good experience, that can give you some problems in some way, shape, or form, and all of a sudden pull the upset. I mean, I think very often if you played those games later in the year, maybe the outcome is different. But as you mentioned, it depends. Sometimes you have a really good team that gets off to a good start. Then you have injuries. Well, the reason why the better teams are the better programs is they have better depth. The teams say, well, this team has injury, that team has injury, the same thing. It's not. If you're not as good of a program, if you're not as good of a team, injuries of your frontline players are going to hurt you more than somebody that has greater depth. So, I kind of look at it like this. If you're a program like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, hate to say it, but they don't need to play very well to win most of their games. I mean, they're going to line up and win most of their games, even if they don't play very well. And that, I think they know that too. And I think like Georgia, they didn't play inspired. Well, it's frustrating as a coach. It's not an indication of there's any problems at Georgia. It means nothing, in my opinion, other than they just weren't really fired up. I mean, you think Miami, and they're not very good. You think they are that much worse than Middle Tennessee? They got hammered by Middle Tennessee. They weren't ready to play. They just, so this happens a lot. So the better teams, that if you build a program with elite level talent, like the three that I mentioned, and I think Clemson's been in that group too over recent years, past, to where you don't have to play your best, you still find a way to win. And so people don't care about anything other than whether you win or not. As a coach, I'm just trained differently. It's about how you play, because how you play determines whether you're going to win and who you can win against and what are your limitations. So fans in the media, understandably and rightly so, they just won. They're 4-0, they're this, they're that. To me, I don't look at Alabama as flawed. I mean, they're flawed by Alabama standards. They're not this elite dominant, but they're still one of the three best teams in the country. They may not win it this year, which for them is a bad year, but they're still better than everybody else in the SEC with the possible exception of Georgia. It doesn't mean that somebody can't do what Texas did, and almost beat them, or what Florida did last year, almost beat them, or what A&M did and beat them. It can happen. It's not that Tennessee can't beat Alabama. They can. It's just a much more narrow path. There are more ways in which Alabama could win it. And if they played 10 times, Alabama probably wins 7 or 8 out of 10. You only play once. And if you have that game, you can do it. And to your point, as you being an Alabama fan, it's a tough match. It's a tough matchup defensively. It is a sleepless nights to have to defend this Tennessee offense. And that's Tennessee's, kryptonite. They have to be great on offense. I've mentioned it. They're not as sharp on offense as they need to be because they didn't play well, I'd have thought, against Pitt overall offensively, not to their capabilities. And I thought Florida took them out of their rhythm. So I think the formula to beat Tennessee is to take them out of their rhythm by getting their offensive flow mixed up, by holding the football on their defense. People are going to beat Tennessee by how they're able to work Tennessee's defense. They're going to lose to Tennessee mainly because of their offensive output and the ability to help their own defense, Tennessee's defense, play better with a lead or make an opposing offense one-dimensional. So it's stylistically and strategically and studying of personnel that I look at to determine what maybe is the ceiling or the floor of each of the teams. I'm fully aware in doing this for a lot of times that anything can happen in any game at any time. It's football. It's what makes it fun. It's the greatest reality TV there is. Because even though we know what's going to happen, we don't always know because stuff happens.
Yep, exactly. Stuff always happens. So let's go back to the today's tough question. We'll revisit that. Before we do, electric bikes are a new thing. Never have been on one, but if I'm going to go on one, I'm going to go to Petago of Chattanooga, and I will ride that thing because I've seen them. I'm not exactly sure how they work, but I know they help you if you have to go up steep hills and stuff like that. They're good for elderly people and probably good for people who just turned 36 like I did. So today's tough question.
You don't look 36. I thought you were like 26. You seriously are 36?
I love you, Coach Landry. And yes, I'm 36.
Oh my goodness! Well, you're right at the age of my nieces. So I thought you're a lot younger than my nieces, but you're
Well,
kind of in that age. You actually
yes.
are. You
Thank
would be my youngest niece of all of my 5. So, well, but anyway, I thought you were younger by a lot margin. So, okay.
Well, thank you. I will take that. So today's tough question: college football QB power rankings are out. Hendon Hooker sits 6th behind CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Grayson McCall. Which quarterback would you take to lead your team? In the lead with 69% is Hendon Hooker. I figured that was going to be the case. Second is Bryce Young with 17%. Third is CJ Stroud with 13%. And Caleb Williams from USC has 0. And I'm kind of wondering, is that because people really hate USC right now because of what the Brew McCoy situation? And I'm betting that might have a little bit.
Yes, a little bit.
Just a little bit to do with it. And then on there we are. There it is. Got to find stuff on the computer. So on the just recruiting notes, Tennessee quarterback coach may have found his quarterback for the 2024 class. This is a story on offthehooksports.com. And he's been pursuing a quarterback called Jake Merklinger. Is it Merklinger?
Merklinger, yes.
Okay.
It's a good young player. And you want to get one every year. And obviously, I think you need to do that, particularly in this day. You don't know how many of them are going to stay. So you got to stockpile the cabinet.
Yes. So he's talking about Tennessee's quarterback's coach, that he came to the game-winning play at ELCA. He came to watch me for a little bit, so that meant a lot, and I'm really excited to get back up there to see Neyland. I mean, they're winning, which is something that attracts me. That's nice. And the offense is super fast, super high energy. They throw the ball a lot, so it's something that'd be fun to play in. So he was a 4-star prospect, Eagles Landing Christian Academy, and he threw a 73-yard strike to ensure the win. So that is on the recruiting news for Tennessee. That is where they sit. So going forward, Amanda's still a spring chicken. Thank you. I don't feel like a spring chicken. I feel like an old chicken, but I appreciate the confidence in that. So, College Football Playoff Committee. Yes. They have gotten together once again in hopes of pushing this, the expanding to 12 in 2024, but have not reached a decision because it's at kind of a stalemate.
I'm hearing that there's a good chance still, there's a lot of optimism still that we could get this as early as 2024. Now, let's refresh everybody. We know that the playoffs are definitely starting 2026, but I think very strongly that it's going to be 2025, and I think there's a possibility it could be 2024. Here's what they're trying to look at, because it's not just the playoffs that they're looking at. They have to, in order to make this work, what the plan is, Amanda and everybody, is they want to take, how we call it week 0?
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking now that's going to be week 1. So you think about that date, that whatever that last August date, they're going to move it up a week, because what they want is to have the conference championship games to be on Thanksgiving weekend. So everything would be moved up a week to accommodate the playoffs in the, the stretch run, so that we don't extend the season and we have what I think is a real void. I think one of the problems in college football, and it's my view anyway, is that December is awful.
Yeah.
It's a great regular season. We have the first week with the conference championship games, which is the first week in December. And then, look, I love the bowl games. I watch them all. I'm one of the knuckleheads and the sycophants that watch all the bowl games. But I'm looking at a lot of things, players and whatnot. But most of those games are not really good. And you take a month off, and then you have the playoffs. Obviously, I think if you do it right, the month of December for college football could be what March is for college basketball. I think that. So they're trying to figure all of that. I think it's doable. I mean, I think TV is not going to be a problem, I'm hearing, because it's not going to really, I mean, they're going to work together and make that work, and it's money's money. I think the only thing is just moving everything schedule-wise for everybody. This involves everybody having to make that adjustment to moving up week 1 to where week 0 is now. It's doable. I'm not an expert on hotel management or anything. I think it is doable to fix a lot of certainly as it relates to the playoffs and things. I think it's doable. I don't know. I mean, you never know if they can fix this, but it seems like, and I don't know why, it's frustrating because they have a meeting to decide that they're going to have another meeting in October. It's kind of like, so I think though, we got to get really close. We need to have something finalized by October if we're going to have it in 2024. I mean, you can't extend it further. So, look, the best I can gather is we're good for 2026, definitely. We know that. I think we're really good for 2025. I think that's going to happen. 2024, we need to get on a stick to get that done. But I think it's doable. So, yeah. We got 1 or 2 more years after this year of the way we're doing it, and then we're off to the 12-team playoff. And then it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamics could change. Because now I'm gonna take you into a 12-team playoff right now, this year. Yeah. Well, Tennessee and Kentucky, people like that, they got a real shot. The problem for Tennessee and Kentucky is you got to get through Alabama and Georgia. Well, 14 playoff, it's probably not going to happen. If I put Tennessee or Kentucky in the Big 12, I think they can compete with Baylor in Oklahoma State, and they might be able to win that league, and they might have a better chance of being 12-0 or 11-1. And, I think whereas if you're talking about a 12-team playoff, if you've got a good 3rd, 4th team in the SEC, they've got a shot. So that potentially is a Tennessee or a Kentucky if they're able to continue. And let's just say they're 10-2. That 10-2 with maybe a competitive loss to Alabama, Georgia, or if they would have beat one of those teams, they're in. In this year's playoffs, you're going to have to win the conference title if you're. That's tough. That's a big ask to beat maybe one or both of them, and by the way, go and beat Alabama maybe a second time, or beat them play them the second time and beat them. So I think this is going to create an environment, even for those programs that are the Pac-12, which is having some issues, and others that. They are good enough to make a 12-team playoff, but now the bar is going to be, can you get the team to the playoffs? Kind of like the NCAA. You should, or you're a tournament team or not. Well, once you do that, then you could sell your program. And so like a program like Tennessee, who's basically trying to be good, but they might be bumping their head up against the ceiling with Alabama and Georgia, if you can be a playoff team. And all of a sudden, on a regular basis, and then, a Nick Saban retires whenever he retires, then maybe you can be that, get to that next level. But I think this makes it very difficult in the current format for teams like Kentucky and Tennessee that I don't look at them, and I don't think they're playoff teams in a 14 playoff. But a 12-team playoff, I can make that case. An Ole Miss, not going to the playoffs. Okay, not going to happen. It's a good team. We'll see what they do against Kentucky. Had a really good season last year. They're not a playoff team in a 14 playoff. 12 team, yeah, maybe so. And that makes a difference because you get hot, you get the right seeding. We all know what it's done in basketball. Basketball's a different sport. It's a tournament sport. Football's not. But 12 teams opens it up to a lot more people, not just in other conferences, but in this SEC, it opens it up to the teams that are not named Georgia and Alabama, which are right now on a different level. They're recruiting at a different level.
Yes, they definitely are. So So when it comes to we're talking about Ole Miss, I do not think Ole Miss is a good team. Just based on eye test, I don't know if it's just the transfer portal or what have you, if that's what, Lane Kiffin has, gotten his players out of. And I understand that he has to, given the limitations at Ole Miss. But they do not, to me, look like a good team. What is your opinion? And I know you said good team. They were, okay last year. But what is your opinion on them this year so far?
I thought they were better last year. I think they're a really good running team. They got 3 outstanding running backs. Jackson Dart has been fine. But it's the running game. I really have concerns about their defense. I don't think they're very good defensively. I knew Tulsa would give them a game last week. They gave them quite the game. And I don't think that's just all they weren't ready for. I just think this team is going to struggle against good offenses. So they're going to – but they can run the football well, and that helps your defense because, you can be fresher and you can have, less time on the field. I look at this game where Kentucky is the more balanced team. Kentucky's better defensively than Ole Miss. Kentucky's getting good play out of Will Levis and the receiving corps. They haven't run the football as well as Kentucky normally does it. They get Chris Rodriguez back, but it is in Oxford, and I think turnovers are a big factor. It always is. So I think this game's intriguing. If it was in Lexington, I'd feel a little bit stronger about it, but I still think Kentucky's the better team. We'll see if they win the game or not. But look, I'm with you. I think Ole Miss is good. I don't think they're special. I thought last year they had some special qualities to them that they lacked. And their special quality was quarterback. And he just kind of put them on their back. They don't have that. Jackson Dart can't do that. But I can tell you, I think they're better at running back this year. I think they got 3 guys that can really do it. So, a good team. I think the West, as I said, I think State's pretty good. I think, Ole Miss is pretty good. I think Alabama. I think Arkansas is pretty good. I think LSU's pretty good. Just mentioned Auburn is really struggling. Everybody's pretty good, and then you got Alabama, which is not playing their best ball by their standards, but they're still, even what they are now, are better than everybody else in the West. And I think the West is tougher. Week in and week out is tougher than the East because, as we said before, I think you got a Florida team that's not nearly as good as there will likely be in the future, and you got 3 opponents that, quite frankly, if you're Tennessee and Kentucky, you should beat very easily. So I think it's a little softer in the East, personally.
Yes. So, and I know that Crazy Nugs just said Kiffin to Auburn. I've heard that rumor. I don't think that is beyond impossible.
It's not impossible. He's been mentioned. Hugh Freeze is a guy that they were very interested in. At least Jimmy Rain and the big boosters were when they were trying to push out Brian Harsin last year. It'll be interesting to see. Those are 2 names to keep in mind. There'll be some others. There's a very strange operations there at Auburn. And right now, who's going to make the call? Going to be the boosters. Going to get an athletic director involved? Can get one of those? Those are always different issues. But Auburn's is always very an interesting. It's a soap opera that is fitting of daytime television, no question, and on the Plains.
Yes, and I know Hugh Freeze was one of the coaches that beat Nick Saban, and that
twice.
Yes,
and
that matters.
2 years in a row. Yeah, he absolutely does.
And
he's done a good job everywhere he's been. Really did a really good job at Ole Miss. We know what happened at the end, and he's doing a very good job at Liberty. And he's just taking vagabonds and plugging them in. He's a good coach, and he can cause a lot of problems. And he's also an outstanding recruiter. Yeah. And so, if you can deal with that, I don't know what the SEC thinks about it. Let me remind folks that Nick Saban wanted to hire Hugh Freeze on his staff a couple of years ago, and the SEC office kind of put the kibosh on it. I don't know how they feel about it. The SEC office and his background is not the whole morality stuff with his burner phone, but the NCAA stuff, that'll be interesting to see. But he's certainly someone, I thought that if I were South Carolina, I would have made that move on him because I think he would have been a really good fit there as well. But I think he's a good coach. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Unfortunately, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of feel dirty sometimes saying that he's a good coach and he's a good fit as a football coach. I don't know that he's a fit for you as a program, and he wasn't for South Carolina. I talked to those folks in the coaching church about it, and I said, look, as a football coach, this is what I think. Really, really good. It's not a fit for you. Hey, there's every bit of reason to say I don't want that guy coaching my team. I completely understand that, and that's teaches on.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Orange Blood said week 0 is a ridiculous term. Whenever football starts is week 1. No one starts counting, saying 0, 1, 2. My question on that, do you think they started this week 0 thing to transition into an easier way to move the college football schedule up?
I don't think so. But I mean, to the point, call it week 0. You're right. That's goofy. That's beside the point. The whole point I'm trying to make is what they're discussing is moving what we call week 1 now, regardless how you think if week 1 is really week 2. What I'm saying is that first week, that Labor Day weekend week would be the second week of the college football season going forward. Now, if they do this, they would put the 5 games in that first week. It would be everybody playing in that first week. So the question would be, would you have 5 games the week before and almost middle of August? I don't know, but that's what their discussion is. Just so we understanding, I'm not advocating calling week 0 week 1. It's what people call it. Is that we'd be moving up a week, and I don't think anybody have a problem with it. Fans are fans. It's a little hotter and all of that, but we get it in to have the season and have the playoffs. People that are in favor of the playoffs are gonna like it. Start the season that much earlier.
Yes, and I know when we were in Atlanta for SEC Media Days, we actually talked to, and I want to say it's the College Football Playoff Commissioner. Is that a person?
You might have talked to yes, I'm drawing a blank. I know the guy. I know who you're talking about. I'll think about it here in a second.
Yes,
the chairman.
Yes, the chairman. Yes, the little round with
guy
glasses.
with the glasses. Yes, yeah.
Yes,
I know
and
exactly.
I asked him. I said, "So moving forward on a 12-team playoff, how would you do that?" And his thing is we would just extend the schedule out. So with that being said, I know there's a lot of stories coming out about the playoff expansion going in and messing up, like competing head to head with NFL on that.
Yes, that's the other thing they have to look at scheduling wise. The one thing they've tried to avoid is, playoff wise, you don't want to get caught up in playing up against the NFL. Folks, we all love, the college football. But the NFL, is the king, and you don't want to hurt your overall television numbers, because that's what leads to the money that comes about. That's so rich, and so they're cognizant of that. And I know many fans say, "Well, I'm going to watch the playoffs over the NFL." Well, it's not about that. They want to have as many eyeballs as they can, and they know that the people that are huge fans of college football are going to watch it all the time. If it's me, I don't care. I'm going to have multiple games on the TV, but I'd rather have it to where I can focus on college football at a certain time, and college football, the NFL on a separate time. And that's what they want. They want the casual fan to come into that, and they don't want to be split up with the NFL. So they've got to work with that on where things will go.
Yeah, and I think we should touch more on that tomorrow. Let's get to, I know we've ran super long, so let's get to message board bingo, and I don't have the crazy music back here. I don't have
we can do it without the crazy music.
Space music. So first one I'm going to read is coming from a Big 12 school. A high school coach circles around him, so smoke them if you got him, boys, because we are screwed. And we'll give everyone 10 seconds to post your guesses if you want to guess on Message Board Bingo. Let's see. I'm very bad at like handling stuff. Does Landry win a shirt if he gets it right? I don't know.
No. I don't think I'm eligible. I don't think I'm eligible for it. No. I could you repeat it again?
Absolutely. So if we finish, a high school coach coached circles around him. So smoke them if you got him, boys, because we are screwed. And no, Crazy Nugs is not Oklahoma. Well, it's a good guess.
Let me know when we want to give the folks time. Let me know when I'll answer it whenever you want me.
Yeah. Big 12 school. You go ahead. We had Oklahoma and Nebraska.
Well, it's Joey McGuire and the job that he did at Texas Tech against Texas last week in Lubbock.
So it would be, Texas.
Joey McGuire was high school coach, great high school coach in the state of Texas. Did a great job in Lubbock last week, and it's done a really good job thus far this year. They beat Steve Sarkisian and Texas this past week. So that's what happened there. So literally, I guess the Texas folks are already, jumping off the curve there because they got beat by quote unquote a high school coach, a very good coach though, Joey McGuire.
So let's do one more. So Hugh Freeze, he will be named the head coach before the end of next week. 10 seconds. I can't sing, or I would do like the Jeopardy thing.
So that's a yes or no thing.
It's a which message board, like which school's message board.
Oh.
Did this come out at?
Okay. Well, I think we know where that is. That's pretty obvious. I think we just kind of gave that a little bit earlier.
Yes. I figured we'd end on that one.
So I think so. That's where you'd say it's the message board that says something war something.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy Nugs.
Warbird.
Warbird.
No, I'm just saying War Eagle.
Yes, we don't know what their mascot is, but Crazy Nugs guessed it. It is Auburn. Go. So
Crazy Nugs
all right.
On top of it.
Yes. So like, subscribe, share to fans that don't even like Tennessee, because we cover everything, SEC, NFL, all of that. And we didn't even get to the game tonight with Joe Burrow versus Tua, if Tua even plays. We didn't even talk
we'll see
about
about Tua's back. It's going to be a fun game if Tua plays, Jalen Waddle plays, the back issue, game time decision. If he can play, I think he's going to play, but I don't have any insight into that. It's just my gut feeling on it. And again, real quick, Amanda mentioned it earlier. God bless everyone out there. I know we all seemingly have friends, family in the Florida area. And if you're in the path, be safe. And as this storm may cause some at least flooding problems elsewhere. So the best to everyone. And folks, keep an eye out. It's not that important in the relative sense, but we know that Florida's game against Eastern Washington is going to be on Sunday. Right now, Florida State Wake Forest is staying at 2:30. It looks like Kansas City and Tampa Bay may be played in Tampa. It might be played in Minnesota. They may move that game because of it. So, again, not that the football is all that important in the grand scheme of things, but if you're watching and following, and there's some weather happening, and we wish the best for everybody.
Yes, absolutely wish the best for everyone. So thanks, guys, and thank you, Coach Landry, for being a part of the show. Hopefully, maybe you could join me tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah, sure. I will be around. I've got another show at 7:30, but we'll talk. Yeah, I can jump in there after I get done with them. Absolutely. So you let me know. Hey, great. Thank you for having me. Great job, Amanda, and thanks for everybody that contribute. It's always more enjoyable when folks can chime in and ask whatever. So great job, everybody. Got some really sharp listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. This has been Off the Hook Sports.